You have a cause and you know you're right and they are wrong. You want to convince them of how right you are and how wrong they are. You explain things so clearly. Your arguments are unassailable. Still, they do not agree. So you explain it again. More incontrovertible facts. Who could deny this? Nobody. And yet still, nothing from them. What? I did try to do it that way for many years. I remember when I first found out about vivisection in the early 80s, I was horrified that men could do these things to helpless animals in laboratories. I remember I received a packet of information in the mail from the Anti-Vivisection Society of America. And I sat with my secretary, Marcy, who later became my good friend and helped me to start Orange County People for Animals. I remember sitting with her in our business suits in our lovely office. She had laid out all these color pictures of unspeakable cruelty on the floor. And we sat down and we just cried because we had had no idea. I remember thinking, well, we just have to tell somebody. I thought if I just informed the general public that this was going on, and some of it right over here at UCI in our neighborhood, that there'd be a big hue and cry and there would be calls for it to be stopped. I thought that it was happening because no one knew about it. I was mostly wrong. Even when I explained it to people, they were mostly still lost in the excuses that they had been conditioned to believe. Well, we need that to keep humans safe. I made all the arguments, all the scientific arguments, all the logical arguments. I didn't even try to focus on the cruelty. I thought the facts and figures would convince them. I told them all the reasons why the results of animal tests cannot be reliably extrapolated to humans, blah, blah, blah. And we had many public demonstrations and we did get a few laboratories closed down, a couple of the worst of them, but did we stop vivisection? No, not even close. Don't make my mistake. Don't think explaining things logically to people is going to have the effect that you think it should. Humans in so many ways are still so barbaric. We are still such backward creatures. Only a tiny percentage of people are willing to change deep-seated beliefs that their culture has taught them because they suddenly encounter a new to them logical argument. Much less than 20%. People's food choices, their racism, their sexism, their classism, whatever the ism is, whatever your cause is, realize that people do not make those choices out of logic. They are culturally conditioned. Men are culturally conditioned to think of women as less than. Almost all modern cultures are conditioned to think of animals as resource machines for food and products. These deep-seated beliefs are not easily changed. I've been an activist for over 40 years. I offer this advice from an old activist. Number one, don't try to convince everyone of your cause. It's probably hopeless. Instead, focus on those few people who seem just a minute or two away from possibly agreeing with you. Don't spend hours of your valuable time arguing with the masses and with the intransigent. Move on. Save your sanity. Number 2, focus more on feelings than facts. Stop showing them your lists of incontrovertible facts. Tell stories, personal stories, your own stories, other people's stories you have heard, you know of, about why you believe what you believe. People are convinced of different points of view, mostly through their feelings of identification with another person. They hear your story, they feel the feeling in the story that you're sharing, and mostly they get it. Even if they don't agree with your position, they mostly can say, yeah, I understand that feeling. It brings them closer to you. And when they're closer to you, you have another chance to persuade them in a gentle way. You are no longer the enemy with that opposite point of view. You're another human being, just like them, with feelings, just like them. Facts are essential to know. You should know all the facts of whatever your cause is. And they are great to have at the ready when necessary. But facts are not the thing that change people's hearts. Stop arguing with facts and start persuading and moving people to your cause with feelings. Number 3, invite them to your cause. Invite them to pleasures unknown to them. Seduce them with new possibilities that they may not have thought of. Start by being a joyful, living example for your cause. If you are a vegetarian or vegan, if that's your cause, live it openly, but do not proselytize with individuals, especially during mealtime. Many people can feel deep inside that it must surely be wrong to harm animals the way you see them harmed in factory farms. Many people can feel this, but pointing that out, especially at meal times, especially after they've just ordered their hamburger, it just shames them. And people rarely make good choices out of a sense of shame. They just get angry and belligerent for having been shamed. And they will blame you. You've heard the phrase, kill the messenger. They will blame you for their bad feeling. Don't shame them for their choices. Say instead something like, I really enjoy the fresh salads that they have at this restaurant. All the produce is locally grown and organic. It's really so good. And then shut up. Live your life and your cause joyfully out in the open without making anyone wrong. People are not attracted to a lifestyle they think is going to bring them more restriction and fewer choices. People already feel very restricted, and you coming along and telling them that they have to stop doing something is not going to be persuasive. People don't want any more restriction. Most people want more joy and pleasure. So you must frame your cause as something that could potentially bring them more joy and pleasure in their lives. And if you can't think of a way your cause is going to do that, then think a little bit harder about why that's your cause, because it's in there somewhere. The joy and pleasure is in there somewhere if your cause is just. Most people, as I say, don't have enough joy and pleasure in their lives. And if they think that you are going to try to take away whatever they currently think of as one of their pleasures, like food or porn, they are going to resist you with everything they have. They will close their minds and they will shut off their hearts to you. If your purpose is to persuade people to a new way of thinking, then you must tempt them. You must seduce them. You must invite them to think about these things with stories and tales and examples of the pleasure, joy, satisfaction, fulfillment of a different way of life. Don't remind heroin addicts how wrong and harmful their addiction is. Instead, tell him stories of how pleasurable and joyful life feels when we are finally free. The pleasures of freedom. Don't shame the porn addict for his contribution to the abuse of women. Instead, seduce him with stories, and there are stories, and many of them, true stories, about the beauty of and the satisfaction and the fulfillment of real relationships with real women. Don't lecture the meat eater about the billions of animals suffering so she can selfishly have her relatively cheap hamburger. Instead, tell her tales of how good it feels to live cleanly, in joy and peace, sleeping well at night, in friendship with animals, in a sense of kinship with all life. Focus on the beauty of a world of kindness and good treatment for all. Don't beat people over the head with your rightness and their wrongness. You will get nowhere. If you currently see your position and their position as a conflict, reframe it in this way. See it as energies seeking harmony. They have an idea, you have a different idea. Whether they will dig in their heels on their position and end up angrily walking away from you, or whether they will possibly be open to your ideas and more sharing from you, or whether they will maybe even come around to your way of thinking and join you. All of this will depend on how well you can invite them to something better for them. And it must be better for them because most people are focused on their individual lives. You'll have more success showing them how their lives will be better. People care about making their own little lives better, most people. About 80% of people care mostly about their own lives. They may pay lip service to, yeah, I want to, make the world better. I want to bring peace to the world, blah, blah, blah. But what they really are motivated by is their own little life, their own personal experience of life. And if you can't think of a way that your cause makes their individual life better, then think a little harder, because the benefit is in there if your cause is just. Show them how your cause can make their lives better. And they will be yours, maybe, or at least a lot closer to joining you. For more, check out the other videos in this activist support series. The activist life can be miserably driven by pain and anguish, the anguish you feel for your cause, or it can be joyful, fulfilling, and effective at making change. Let's be those brave, happy, and strong-hearted souls who are helping humanity evolve into goodness. All success to you in your mission. Activists are the brave, strong-hearted, and visionary souls who have always been the ones to lead the world to change for good. For thousands of years, each generation of activists has helped to transform life on this planet. In this series, we support the activist, whatever their cause, in their personal efforts to help us evolve into a better world.